Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, thanks. I just forget it to start because
No problem, sir. No problem. Thank you.
so it is the horizontal and vertical for V, right? Okay, and this is the vertical and horizontal orientation. Additionally, these functions accept vectors of pandas in NumPy objects rather than variables in data. So this is the volume part, the similar. Okay, we could also make horizontal this orientation. Okay, so that is the multi-panel categorical plots we want to produce. Category data can be visualized using two plots, can either use the functions point plot or the higher level functions factor plot. And factor plot draws a categorical plot on a phase grid. So first I draw this. I am using a dataset exercise here. First I want to show you that dataset. I just show you that. It is the unnamed is a column. It is not useful for me. ID is there, diet is there, pulse is there, time is there, and kind is there. So if I make it create a graph through this, I get this time, minute, 1 minute, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, the three times would be there. Rest, walking and running. So this is giving in this way. Sometimes you could use this sort of graphs as per the importance. And where time pulse kind violin graph we could take for this. Similarly, you could get the factor plot, time pulse kind violin diet. So look at these are the factor plots we have. We have the pulse here, and we have diet no fat, diet low fat. So we have taken one another variable, which is the color through the diet, and kind. So kind is here, while in the color we have taken. So we are getting diet no fat and low fat. That is, so it divided it because we could not take much categorical here. So it distinguishes in its two parts. And again, we are taking the Titanic data alive and color through the day, and we see there are few null values. So we have written that syntax dec d, dec e, dec f, dec g, alive and alive and alive. So in this way, so it is given, uh, but it is not giving us as much useful information. And the last we see about the linear relationships. Okay, or it is called the regression plot, and one is called the linear model plot. So I will explain. First, I read this so you could little bit understand about what we are going to do now. Most of the times we use dataset that contain multiple quantitative variables. We know that. And the goal of an analysis is often to relate those other variables to each other. And this can be done through the regression lines. There is the impact of various predictors on dependent variable, on the response variable, on the target variable. While building the regression models, we often check for multi-collinearity, where we had to see the correlation between all the combination of the continuous variables and will take necessary action to remove multi-collinearity if exists. In such cases, the following techniques helps. So the functions to draw linear regression model. There are two main functions in the C1 to visualize a linear relationship determined through regression. These functions are the RIG plot and the LM plot, linear model plot. It is not a IM plot. So I have written something, the difference between those. Accepts accepts the accepts the X and Y variables in a variety of formats, including simple NumPy arrays, pandas, series objects, or as reference to a variable in the pandas data frame. LM-plot has data as the required parameter, and the X and Y variable must be specified strings. This data format is called the long form data. So let's draw the plot and plotting the rig plot and then mplot, LM plot, sorry, with the same data in this example. So first I'm plotting the rig plot, and then I will plot the LM plot. And here is the tips data set. You already aware about it. There is a total bill, tip, and both the variables are numeric, continuous variable, tip, and the total bill. So y on x is always the linear regression concept is y tilde x. So we just show you first this. This is not required because we have already done that. And I run this. You see the both plot, and there is not much difference between both. What is the difference are you getting over there? I will show you that. Just a moment. Now, what is the difference between both? Yeah.
So the slope is different.
Please tell loudly.
The dots are a bit congested in the first plot instead of the second plot.
There is a opposite x axis. There is this boundary. Opposite y is also boundary we have. Don't we have?
Yes.
It is closed It is closed basically.
Oh, okay.
This one is called the closed, and this is open. The difference is very important.
So the slope is different. So slope
Eh?
seems different. So slope seems different of that lean.
Yeah. Please you pardon what you have told. Please loudly, little bit.
Sir, the slope is seems like it's different. The slope.
No. Slope is exact slope, but here is a. You see, it is the width they have minimized here, but the slope is same. Slope is same.
Oh, okay, so.
And there is no difference inside this. What I want to say that no difference here in the data links. Okay, the difference is that it is closed.
Closed and open.
Or it is open. So why it is closed? The regression plot is we are creating this plot in perspective of inferential analysis. We are not predicting anything. If you don't want to predict, you are using in the PhD research or your some research paper, you are applying this regression analysis. That is the inferential use of reference regression analysis. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, sir.
We are not predicting here. We are not predicting. Predicting means we are not forecasting anything for future. We are not making future prediction. In the first part, we will predict, but on the current context, whatever the data we have, the historical. Here we would predict on this only up to here. Will not go beyond this. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
But here we could go beyond this. It is a predictive model. It is a linear model which we create in the machine learning. Does that make sense to everyone? I write the annotation. It is a linear regression analysis, and it is for inferential purpose, inferential analysis. And this is for, I take some dark, so linear model. We are making linear model. Okay. And this is for predictive analysis. Does that make sense to you now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So this is the difference between the both plot. If you are working in an inferential analysis perspective, then you use this one, closed one. If you are making some predictive analysis you are doing, then you will make this one. Okay. Is there, Suman, have you got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we see some more plots. Now so first you have make this, and now we saw some more plots. This the tips, and here the size, how many persons were there in a restaurant, in a group, and the why the tip. As per the persons they give the tip. Now, if the one person, it will give a very small tip. If there are 6 to 8 persons, they will give more tip to the servant. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Shaded region implies here. Ashish Kumar is asking about the shaded region. It is the confidence level. Confidence interval is there. The prediction is this line. This is the predictive line. If you have X this one total bill, then the tip would be this. My prediction says. Does that make sense to you? The fluctuation may be from here to here in that tips. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, sir.
No? That is the confidence level at 95%. Okay. So we were making this plot, and no, I take that 100. It is 100 now, so it is visible to you. And here I am making linear model plot with size and that. So I will get open plot. So it's the size of 2 persons if came. So they give up to the 6 rupees tip. We consider in the rupees or the dollar, whatever. And here the 3 persons come, they give more tips. And the 4 they give then or more. The range is from here to here. The range is from here to here. Range is from here to here. 6. Does that make sense to you? Fitting different kinds of models. So the simple linear regression model used above is a very simple fit, but in the most of the cases, the data is non-linear. And the above method cannot generalize the regression line. So we use Anscombe's data set we are using here with the regression plots. So I will explain you first that Anscombe data set. This is also not useful. I just do this. Is the data set and X and Y is given. And we just we're not going in the what is in this data. X and Y variables and some values are given, and we see this model only. X we are taking X variable, Y we are taking Y. Data df query data set equal to Y. I will show this why I have written this. So it is the LM plot we are making. Okay, and the data is df dot query data set equal to 1. So there is a df dot query is a expression in place false we are tweaking, and the keywords arguments we are using here, and data frame from the I will explain in that. Just I run this and look at this data set 1. We have this one, and we have the different data sets over there. And that ANSCON, we have the data set equal to 1, and we are taking the data set equal to 2. It is a non-linear. Okay, high deviation, show the line of best fit. So then we are taking order 2. So we'll get in this way. Okay, so this we are taking data dot query data set 2, and order 2 we are taking. So this is basically a linear one, and this is non-linear. This is also non-linear. So we have a different data sets for the ANSCOM. We are taking that. Now the final is the facet grid, where we get the so many correlation graphs or whatever we want, small multiples of data subsets. A useful approach to explore medium dimensional data. Medium dimensional data should not be so many columns over there, is by drawing multiple instances of the same plot on different subsets of data set. This technique is commonly called a lattice or trellis plotting, and it is related to the idea of small multiples. To use these features, your data has to be in a pandas data frame. That is very important. The plotting small multiples of the data sets. In the previous, we have seen that the facet grid examples were the facet grid class helps the visualizing distributions of the one variable as well as relationship between multiple variables separately within subsets of your data sets using multiple panels. So I will explain you that. We have done it earlier. Yesterday we have done that. I just show you this pair plot. Okay. Now so the facet grid can be drawn with above 3 dimensions: row, column, and hue. And the first two obvious correspondence with the resulting array of the axis. Think of the hue variables as a third dimension along with the depth axis. And where different labels are plotted with different colors. So facet grid object takes a data frame as input and the names of the variables that will be form of the row and column hue dimensions of the grid. The variables should be categorical, and the data at which each label of the variable will be used for the facet along with the axis. So I am taking the tips and facet grid, df, column, time, and plots. So it is just I have taken only one. I have not taken anything. The color I have taken time, and DF I have taken only. Now I use this. I have not mapped it. Now I am mapping it. Facet grid dot map I will use here. So I will use the dot map, and the G is this object, and I map this. So you will see I am getting this, the time, the lunch and column. It is not a color, it is a column. So one column and the second column. So it is the time lunch and time dinner. And we could use the columns X and the hue is smoker. And you will see this would be like this. Hue is the smoker, non-smoker and smoker. You will see these two colors, and total bill and the tip, and the gender. And we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Peer grid we have created already. I think that we have created. Still we are creating this. So this is the peer grid. We have peer plot we have done there also. So it is the grid, peer grid we are using here. Separ length and this all. Here we are getting all the graphs are the scatter. PLT map. We are doing this syntax Gmap, and G is the object name, and the mapping we are doing, and some more we see. So it is the same we have created over there. Okay. There is a different commands we could use for that. And here also, if you see this one, or if I comment this and uncomment this, I think there is something problem. Okay, SNS I have taken. So what I will do, I will take SNS. Iris is not defined, and SNS I have to write it. SNS here. Okay, I'm taking the iris now. That's the reason. It should work. This is the plot. The same plot we will get, but having some different commands. Either you could use this or you could use this. Okay, there is no much difference in both. What I am going to say is that there is no difference in both the commands. If you see df, I have written with iris, the plot is the same. The same thing. The map of the diagonal and the map diagonal. Of diagonal, it is plotting the scatter plot, and the diagonal it is making the histogram, and here the diagonal of diagonal, the same thing. Add legend. So we have added the legend also here. Okay, species this for these three colors, the setosa and versicolor and the virginica. So you could use any one. Okay, either this or this. And last one, which I am going to say that iris map upper, scatter, lower. Okay, first I run this, then I will explain. WST, and the kernel density. That is the kernel density on the lower side. There is the MP map upper triangle. You will see this is scatter. Upper triangle we are taking the scatter. What I explain you one by one. That is the data frame. we have uploaded it, and this is the peer grid. We just written this data name here, and we have given this to G. Then G object we will take everywhere. G dot map upper plot scatter. PLT is for the map plotly. PLT dot scatter we are taking here, and map lower underscore lower. We are using the Seaborn here, SB, and KDE plot. And lower we are taking the kernel density, and it is a CMap is blues, or you could write the radar. Blues D density. Okay, that is a different C mapping. And the map diagonal, in the diagonal what you want. Diagonal we are taking that KD plot with length width 3 and legend false. Okay. So this is the, we could take the histogram also here. If you want, you could take the histogram. Histogram it is not taking. Why it is not taking? PLT will take the histogram, not this SB. So we'll take the PLT. That is a little bit confusing. Sometimes the Matplotlib is working there and the Seaborn both are together working. So sometimes we get some, it is making only in one, the other it is not making. Rectangle objects no property legend. So this legend is not required to us. This legend is not required. Okay. This legend and the other properties. It's okay. Okay. So you could change it. You could change it. So does that make sense to you? So this was all about the Seaborn, and now you have to practice more on this. The visualization is not a very small topic; it's a very wide topic, and there are so many permutations and combinations in the visualization. And as per the practice or the experience, we learn more and more, because there are various tools we use for the visualization. Here in the Python is the Seaborn and the Bokeh and the Matplotlib we are using. The R we are using some other tools. ggplot and the basic R approach we are using over there. Sometimes we get confused in the syntax also. So there are different approach for the syntax in each our it is all about the visualization. Now we see the what is our next topic. Inferential analysis, we have the second topic. So today we will cover the theory of this inferential analysis, and later on tomorrow we do the practical on inferential analysis. So Just a moment. Let's continue. Let's continue the session. Sure. So I think my screen is on your window now.
Yes, sir.
So you see what is inferential analysis basically is. I'll show you what does it mean. Statistical inference is the process of using data analysis to deduce properties of an underlying distribution of probability. The inferential statistical analysis infers properties of a population, for example, by testing hypotheses and driving statements. It's a very complex definition. I'll just tell you the simple form of inferential analysis, that it is the study of cause and effect. If there is significant difference between few properties or a few parameters, then we see it through the test, we find whether this is correct or not. It may be due to sample size, it may be due to some other reasons. So that we study here. What we do here in the first we use the hypothesis for testing. We test the hypothesis basically. So we will be discussing two kinds of hypotheses are here. Research hypothesis and statistical hypothesis. Research hypothesis is just a statement. Statement means if we are telling that consumption of sugar makes children more active or hyperactive, we don't have any data, but it is only our observation. We are telling according to that. And the phonics is better for teaching reading than is whole language. It is the plain words basically. It is a statement, I mean to say. But a statistical hypothesis are the probabilistic mathematical statements. It is the probabilistic. And concerning population values, stated in terms of parameters used in the risk. So that is a statistical hypothesis. Here we have some data and we work with the data, and that is a statistical hypothesis. It's a conjecture or the assumption about a population parameter, or in other words, a statement about an unknown population parameter. This conjecture may not be true. So I explain this first to you. A statistical hypothesis is an assumption, we could assume that. It is an assumption about a population parameter. Population parameter is what? If you toss a coin, what results you will get? What result?
Either head or tail.
Either head or tail. Okay. So this is the population parameter. We generally know that if we toss a coin, then 50% chance of head and tail. Does that make sense to you? This is a population parameter. But actually, when you toss a coin 100 times, so it's sure that you will get 50 times head and the 50 times tail. It is sure?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
You will get 50 times head and 50 times tails if you toss a coin 100 times. Exact 50 times tails and 50 times. Yeah.
No, sir.
You could not get. So it is the population parameter which is telling that the coin is fair, coin is not biased. Then we might get 50% head and 50% tail. Does that make sense to you? It is the population parameter. But in actual, when you use when you are tossing 100 times only, which is a sample from the population, and you may get 54 times head and the 46 times tails. And another person also toss 100 times, he gets 62 times head and remaining 48 times, 38 times tail. It may be possible. If the 5 persons are tossing 100 times simultaneously, so they all will get the different sort of result. It might be possible. So, but the population parameter is what? It is 50-50%. So what we do, we want to know, we have two things. We have two things. One is whether we have to check the coin is fair or not. Does it make sense to you? Or we have to check this thing. So through if you work and you get the big difference between population parameter and your results, you get a big difference and you test the hypothesis and you get the significant difference in the population and your sample statistics. So it means the coin is not fair. The coin is biased. Does that make sense to you? And the coin is not balanced, basically. Bias means not balanced. Does that make sense to you? So in this way, we assume about a population parameter and we check this. Sometimes we don't have the population parameter. Sometimes. Then what we do? Mostly there is no need if we have to do different samples. So the population parameter is not required. Suppose we have two section A and section B in a school or for a particular class. The section A mean marks of particular subject like mathematics is some like for 65, and in the section B it is 52. So there is a difference between 65 and 52, and then we test the hypothesis, and we get there is significant difference. There is no population parameter required. Does that make sense to everyone? So sometimes the sample is more than one, then the population parameter are not required. Sometimes in the single sample, we don't know the population parameter. What would be the reaction? So then that sort of test is called non-parametric test. We don't have the population parameter. In the coin example, we have the population parameter. But if you slap someone, so back you get the slap or you won't get the slap. So you don't have the population parameter. Okay. So that is a unknown population. We don't know the parameter for that. This conjecture may not be true. So this is our assumption may or may not be true, whatever. Major methods for making statistical inference about a population is the traditional method. We have confidence interval method. We have the p-value. So we will talk here about the confidence interval and the p-value method. Confidence interval method is not used nowadays. The p-value method is mostly used. I will explain later about the p-value method when we do this and later on the later slides. The main goal in the many research studies is to check whether the data collected supports certain statements or predictions. The main goal in many research studies is to check whether the data collected supports certain statements or predictions. So it supports or not, whatever data we have collected. And what I would like to say about the p-values. First, I tell you about the p-values. So, if we take the p-values through the probability, so this is our x scale, and this is our probability density curve. In this way, suppose it is a normal distribution. Normal distribution. And here we have this center line. We are in the normal distribution, mean, mode, and median all are equal. So here is our mean something. I take some dark colors. Visible. It is a mean. Median is also here, mode is also here. And there is some standard deviation which is sigma. So this is the point where this data, this curve inflate and then change its curve direction. Sorry, inflection is there. So that is x bar plus sigma. One sigma it will inflect. Then second sigma it will also. Then x bar plus 3 sigma in this. Also on the left side, x bar minus sigma, x bar minus 2 sigma, and x bar minus 3 sigma. In this way. This is on the axis. There is a one more scale for normal distribution we use. Can somebody tell me the name of that scale? Yeah. What scale we use in a normal distribution?
Likert type.
Please loudly. I am not getting your.
So Likert type scale.
No, Likert type scale no. Yeah. Use the G scale. Z scale or the G scale we say. G scale. And what does the G scale formula? We convert this X into G scale, normal scale, standardized normal scale. Have you listened about it? X minus X bar over sigma. Suppose I have few values are here. I put those values. Here we have the mean is 52 and the standard deviation is 9. So 52 plus 9 is 61. 61 plus 9 is 70 or it is 79. Does that make sense to you? Here we have 52 minus 9 is 43. 43 minus 9 it is 34. 34 minus 9 it is 25. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, sir.
So we want to convert this x square into g square. So what I will do, I will write here x is, I want to convert this value first. So x is 52 here. Okay. This is the mean. 52 is mean also. This is the mean point. It is a mean. And the standard deviation is 9. So what I will get? 0. Here I see, if I write 61 minus 52 over 9, it is 9 over 9, which is 1. Similarly, here I will get 2, here I will get, here I will get minus 1, minus 2, and minus 3. Does that make sense to you? And this whole region under this curve is 1. It is the probability curve. So the probability values lies between 0 and 1. So total, it will not touch anywhere, this axis. It will nearer and nearer and nearer and nearer. Okay. It will very, very near to, but it will don't touch. So the 1 is the total overall region. And the 1 is total overall region, it means 0.5 is here, probability, and 0.5 is here. Does that make sense to everyone? And for, if I see here, 89, we test our hypothesis in default with 2 confidence level. One is 95% confidence level you have that your null hypothesis is true. %95% you have confidence that your null hypothesis is true. Your statement is true. So the 5% is level of significance given only. Because we divide, we subtract 95 from 100, we get the 5% level of significance. Now I will explain this thing. Here have the confidence level at 95% confidence level. The G value is 1.96, which is less than 2. So your point will come 1.96. So here you will get that. And here we get this region. So your value is, it is the point of 5%. Okay. So if value, your p value is smaller than 0.05 means 5%, 0.05 we convert, that would be a percent. So it's less than that, then it will come here. It's less than that. If it is greater than that, p value is greater than, here you will get p value greater than 0.05 will lie in this side, in the book, lie here. So it is our acceptance region of your statement. Or this is our rejection region of your statement of the hypothesis. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah. It is the rejection region. So what happens when we test the data, we get the p-value. If suppose we get the p-value 0.8, 0.8 is greater than 0.05, it means your null hypothesis has been accepted because it is lies here. It will lie here because the 0.05 less than will be here and the greater than values are always here. The acceptance is here. Your statement has been accepted. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, sir.
So thus this point we have to keep in our mind when we do this inferential analysis. Only with the p-value we have to decide whether our statement is accepted or rejected. Is that clear to all? Yeah.
Can you run through one more time, sir? The p-value greater than 0.05?
If the p-value is greater than 0.05, then it will lie here in the acceptance region. That probability lie here. If it is smaller than 0.05, then it will lie here in the critical region, or it is called the rejection region. Yeah, this is the line for 0.05. If it is in this region, right side region, so then it will be rejected.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
I will clear with the example also, but it take little bit time and to understand. As I have told you that our statement, what we take, it is always the null hypothesis. There are two types of statistical hypothesis: null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis. So both are opposite to each other. Both are mutually exclusive and exhaustive also. So null hypotheses are denoted by H0, while the alternative hypothesis can be denoted by H1 or HA. So in the two-tailed test, I will not go in deep two and one tail at present. And when we do the things, then I will explain. So here the two-tailed test, the population mean is this. This is my population mean, and this is my sample mean. So my null hypothesis, generally we take the statement like that, like this. There is just a moment. Right, in proper way so you can understand this. I'll show you. There is no significant difference in population mean and sample mean. Okay, this is the null hypothesis statement. So I will show you practical thing. Just a moment, so you could understand how does it work. Just a minute. Mhm. I think that is not there. Just like you see this first inferential analysis, there would not be a significant positive effect of meditation on the blood pressure of pregnant women. So this is the null hypothesis. Here you see there would not be a significant positive effect of meditation on degree of happiness of pregnant women. So when we conduct this sort of test and we get the result in the t value, in the t and the p value, whatever. Finally, we get the result in the p value. And according to the p-value, we decide whether this effect is significant or not. Okay. So I think that my file which I created, I have done this, but what happens I don't know. Okay. It's not here. I think it has been, I have not said that, so it is not there. Just a minute, I will show you that. I will show you that how we get the result and how we interpret it. But I have done this in R. You will do the same thing in the Python. Okay. We'll try this one. See if data is there. You see, this is my result of the mean score of the pre and the post. And this is the mean score for what I will show you. Mean score pre and post of the happiness scale. Okay, after meditation, this is the before meditation, the after meditation, they have checked the parameters of the pregnant women, like blood pressure and other things. And the happiness, how happy they are. So they have given some form and is being filled up. So that is the, you see here, it is 7.4 into 10 to the power minus 5. So it is very, very negligible value. It is less than 0.05. It is less than 0.05. Just break this. It is less than 0.05. So P is less than 0.05. So our null hypothesis is that there is no significant difference, as I explained you again. I showed you that third hypothesis. there would not be a significant positive effect of medicine on degree of happiness in the pregnant woman. Meditation, sorry, of on degree of happiness in the pregnant woman. So our null hypothesis has been rejected. So this null hypothesis has been rejected. It means there is significant positive effect of the meditation on degree of happiness in pregnant women. So that is the result. Our statement has been rejected. We are telling that there is no significant positive effect, but this hypothesis has been rejected. So what does it mean? There is significant effect of meditation on degree of happiness in the pregnant woman. So this sort of hypothesis we are taking, like the meditation would not be effective as behavioral medicine in the pregnancy complications. There will not be a significant relationship among research variables, nausea and vomiting, blood pressure and happiness. So this sort of study like that. So in this way, we get the t-value, t-test we are conducting here. Degree of freedom is 60 data, so n minus 1, which is 59. And it is a pairwise t-test we are doing. And the p-value is less than 0.05. And the confidence level limit where the value crosses. And the mean of the differences is given. The mean of the pre and post is given here. So that in this manner we do it. So that is the p-value is very important. Now that makes sense to you, everyone.
Yes, sir.
We get the p-value. Whenever we do the test, we get the p-value. And we have to judge through the 0.05. It is the 95% confidence level. If it is 99% confidence level you have, so then the p-value is less than 0.01 would be rejected and greater than 0.01 would be accepted. Does that make sense to everyone?
Sir, what is t-test actually?
T-test we conduct between two samples or the single samples also. I will explain each and every type of test here in this session. We have in the script. Okay, in this. I will explain each and every, but not in between. I want to explain. There is a t-test, g-test, chi-square test. Every test I will explain. Okay. So this is the, if your mu is equal to k, the notation, it is the sign notation we use sometimes. We use sometimes the two-tailed test, the mu is equal to k and mu is not equal to k. It means there is no significant difference between population mean and the sample mean. That makes sense, please? Is it clear to you? There is no significant difference between population mean and sample mean. Does that make sense? It is the symbolically one. The alternate hypothesis would be the opposite of this. There is no significant difference. There is significant difference. The alternate hypothesis, there is significant difference. They are not equal. So there is significant difference. Does that make sense to you? Okay. Here the right tail test, this symbol would be same for the null hypothesis, but the alternate hypothesis, it will change. The mu is greater than k and the mu is smaller than k. So in this way, we will take this. Okay. So this is a big chapter, not a small one. It will take one more day to explain each and everything. I will not cover today the more things. You are asking me about the test. So we have so many tests. I will explain you. The G test, T test, F test, ANOVA, chi-square test. Every test I will tell you, explain in detail when and where we use that. So this is the T test you see. Parametric test and non-parametric. T test, G test, and the T test are the parametric test here. Test of significance of attributes. Test for numbers of success. Test for the proportion of success. Test for difference between proportions. Okay. And I have also given some examples, numeric manual examples. So you could better understand them. the test of proportion of success, instead of recording the number of success in each sample, we might record the proportion success 1 by nth of the number of success in each sample. As this would amount of dividing all the figures of the record by n. The mean proportion of the success must be p. And the standard deviation of the proportion of the success is square root pq upon n. Hence the standard error is given by the formula this. So that is the given. The sample I have given, the 500 apples are taken at random from a large basket and 50 are to be bade. Estimate the proportion of bad apples in the basket and assign limits within which the percentage most probable lies. So this sort of examples I have given. So many examples I have given. Test of significance of attributes. When I will share, and you could see this, it's a very big PPT, my biggest PPT so far. It is the PPT of 74 slides. Okay, so there are so many things I have explained also. Visual correlation matrix, how we visualize it, correlation analyze, format visualization, everything. There's so chi-square test, every test we will see here, the examples with the numeric examples I have given. So manually, if you perform, then you could better understand the thing. What is this? How we have to check it. The chi-square we use for the feature engineering, feature selection. Also, we use the chi-square method, which is so then you could better understand this. It will take one more day. Today I finish here now. So it's a very, tomorrow we will fresh mind. I will start this chapter. Is there any doubt, Mariam? Do you have any doubt? The person, how many persons are from the academic field? The Suresh Kumarji is there from the academic line, I think. Suresh Kumarji, are you academic?
I'm not academician, sir. Actually, I'm a freelancer.
Okay.
But my wife is a professor.
Okay.
So we have some kind of academic exposure.
Okay.
She is doing PhD. She is about to complete her PhD. Management PhD.
So you know a little bit about this, na? Hypothesis testing and
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And Srinivasan ji, you are not from the academic field, I think so.
No, I am not from the academic field.
So it will take I will explain in a detail this chapter. Don't worry.
Yeah.
This time I will explain full detail. Okay. So don't worry. I will expect each and every corner of this. This is my, I have started my analytics with this particular thing in 1992 when I analyzed first PhD thesis with calculator only. So
no, I'm wondering how this data science, all these analysis, everything was done before the advent of R, Python, and these kind of things. Were they done manually?
Before that, when I did the work, at that moment, nobody knows about the test also. We have not applied any test there. We have just used the variance. Variance and this thing, and then we have compared that thing, and then we have decided. We didn't take any test in that hypothesis.
Mm-hmm. So all these are only last 10 years, right? This Python and
Python and R last 10 years, but the inference analysis is long back. 10.
Yeah, correct. But all these things were done manually at that time.
Yeah. So we because of the machine was not efficient like our computers. So we could not do much more on that part of the data analytics like the machine learning and this all. Now the processor are very high-end processor. You see in the mobile we are getting 12 GB RAM, which is amazing. So my system has 32 GB RAM.
Oh,
so that's the thing. So we are using the big data analysis. Then we are getting this configuration machine. We have the GPU in our system, everything. So it is now the high-end processing machines. So we could do
Uh,
this
bu-
all.
but when we check with the IT people, what they say is 8 GB RAM is sufficient to run Windows and applications,
Yeah,
and 16 GB is more than sufficient. But you say 32, I'm surprised.
the 32 is because the big data analysis. We have the rows, the 40 lakh rows of data, and we
Okay.
have 112, 113 columns.
So how long does it take to do that modeling?
So the 32 GB in very small time it do. Otherwise, the 8 GB computer if we use, there is no GPU. We have sometime image processing work also. The image classification model we are making. So we
Okay.
have so many thousands of images,
Okay. Okay.
and then we have to vectorize the image in some matrices
So
in
in, so in,
arrays.
so in that case, you use what is called the configuration of a workbook kind of thing, because normal PCs may not be able to take so much load, right?
Ah,
High-end, heavy-end PCs kind of, they call this
yeah, yeah.
workbook, engineering kind of workstations. Is it
Yeah, yeah.
like that? Yeah.
We have the PCs. We have it is the customized because as per our requirement, we have taken the motherboard and
Okay.
everything.
Okay. Okay.
So that is the
Okay. All right. Thanks.
but 8 GB or 12 GB is sufficient for normal work for the analysis, data analytics, machine learning. It is okay. But when we enter in deep learning, then require high configuration machine. There is a tensor, neural networking. These all require.
My, my son is doing computer science. He's in the
Yeah,
second year in Singapore studying.
yeah.
So if we want to buy a laptop for him, because he is also interested in data science and other things, this year he will be studying about it.
Hmm.
So which kind of configuration can
One is
you
the
suggest?
corporate laptops are available in the Dell, by
I
Dell
see.
company, corporate laptop, which used by the IT companies mostly. And they use it for 3 years, then they auction that laptop.
Yeah, they change it. Yeah.
So that is the corporate laptop range is the Latitude, or the some other companies also have a different range of the corporate laptop. So he must
How,
purchase the corporate one.
how about these kind of Surface kind of laptops where they say you can increase up to 32, 64 GB and all that? Can it
Hmm.
withstand the load?
Yeah, yeah,
Surface is okay,
yeah.
because that is the only PC which we buy from home, or at the same time it works as a tablet also.
Hmm.
So that is the only place where we find that you can go up to 512 GB hard disk, plus they can increase up to 64 GB also, this RAM or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. Later we could increase it.
Mm.
Now there is a SSD is there now.
Yeah, yeah.
Instead of hard disk, there is a it is very
But
high
by the look of it, Microsoft doesn't have a rugged look, that
Hmm.
Surface. That's why I always have a doubt what to do, what kind of a configuration should I look for that.
I have my son. I have one Dell Latitude,
Dell. Oh, okay.
the corporate laptop.
Okay, okay.
So he's
Which
also
means
doing data
it
science.
will be used one second-hand kind of thing, correct? Or
Yeah,
we can buy first-hand also.
I
Be
have
very
purchased
expensive.
second hand. I have purchased second hand
Okay, okay,
because I am involved in the IT sector now.
okay, okay,
So I know
okay,
the vendors and these all.
okay, okay,
So they purchase the whole lot from some company like TCS
okay.
is here. So they have
So
purchased the 10, 50 pieces and they are in my contacts. So
okay, okay. So is it possible for you to just send me the configuration by WhatsApp so that I
yeah,
can
yeah, yeah,
compare it? Huh?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Uh, Kshitij, do you have any doubt?
Sir, which type of image analysis you done?
Image classification, image recognition in the machine learning.
Satellite images?
Yeah, satellite also. Still, I have one project, but I am not giving time to that project. The satellite, animals and human. We have to recognize which one is animal and which one is human from the satellite image.
No, sir, no doubt from my side.
Okay, sir.
There is a project. There is a prize on that project also. So, but I am not. I have not much time to do that image process and everything. So, I am not taking part. I have registered, but I am not taking part. Okay, so we finished today, and tomorrow I will explain each and everything in detail.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.